Hello, everybody, and welcome to Virtual Bourbon. My name is Steve Akley. We have a fun event tonight. It is our classic one here. It is our flagship whiskey, the one where we get to talk to distillers about their signature whiskey and then actually get to try that. So it's going to be a fun event tonight. Before we kind of get into the program where we talk to each distiller individually, I'd like to introduce our distillers for this evening. Now, Dancing Goat is scheduled to be here. Hopefully they get the opportunity to be here. We got Nick Mass, the head distiller blender, and hopefully he shows up. I will have Justine watching for him. She can send me a note because I can't always watch who's on and things like that as I'm going here. Then from Blue Run, we've got two individuals here. So Blue Run, and of course they are out of Bardstown, Kentucky at this point. We've got Mike Montgomery, co-founder, and then Sammy Halpern, the global brand manager. Hey guys, how's it going?
We're doing great. How are you, Steve?
Good to hear. Absolutely.
And Sammy, very well, sir.
Yeah,
very well, sir.
That's good. We're going to kick this thing off with you guys, so just be ready. We're going to go around the horn here and meet everybody, but we'll start off the interviews with you guys. Okay. Great. All right. Next up, from Driftless Glen out of Baraboo, Wisconsin, which is a fun place to go, by the way. You ever head that way into Wisconsin, go to the Dells, get up to Baraboo while you're there. There's some fun stuff to see. Besides, you got Driftless Glen, you've got you've got the Circus Museum, all kinds of cool stuff. We got Reneé Bemis, the founder of the company. Hey, Renee, how you doing?
Hi. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely.
I'm doing great. Thanks.
Absolutely. Glad to have you here. And look forward to learning a little bit more about you. Next up from Cedar Ridge is Murphy Quint. He is the distiller and Cedar Ridge is out of Swisher, Iowa. Hey, Murphy, how you doing, man?
Hey, good. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here with all you.
Absolutely. So, and I understand that Nick Mass has joined us from Dancing Goat Distillery. Hey, Nick, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Sorry about that. I was thinking 8 Central and 7 Central, so I do apologize so much. Thank you for having us.
This is not a problem. I deal with this all the time because I have to schedule shows and I get confused on this stuff. So it's no big deal. I totally get that, believe it or not. So not a big deal at all. And besides that, how are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. I just got done. We ran some 100 rye today at the Dancing Goat. We got 48 barrels of bourbon barreled today. I can't believe that I made it to this tasting today. I'm covered in mash, I'm covered in whiskey, and I just feel great. Crazy I'm honored to be up here with, there's some real accomplished companies up here, one from my state, Holla, but then also Mr. Quint, big fan of what you guys are doing over at Cedar Ridge, big fan of your cousin over at Yahara, and then obviously, that butterfly, we're all chasing that butterfly, and and I really love that 4-Spirit, which I didn't even know nothing about, y'all. So I'm just, I'll put myself on mute before I take up all the time because I'm just so happy to be here.
Well, we're gonna kick it off with you. So since you made it here, you're scheduled to go first. So we're gonna start our show here with you. So just if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about Dancing Goat. What makes you guys unique?
Oh, I'd love to. So what makes us unique is our willingness to try new things. And so what you guys have in front of you today with Limousin Rye is a double barrel cast finished rye aged primarily in used cooperage. And when I say used cooperage, I mean a used bourbon barrel. And so what we do for Limousin Rye is 5.5 years in a used cask. And then we do a blend of about 25 to 30 barrels. We use that blend to recharge our Solaris system. It's a 16 barrel Limousin oak Solaris system. That's where our first of the 2 finishes comes from. Once we've gotten a good enough vanillin extraction from there, we'll parse it out into individual casks, usually the cask that we just dumped. So my favorite, I call them VAOFs, Vintage American Oak finishes. I love them, especially if you kind of know how to do the proofing right. You can pull a bunch of caramelized hemicellulose out of there, so you get a high caramel contact high from smelling it. I love it. It's just the best. What I really think shines from our rye, and specifically, like, so another great rye, I mean, the Driftless Glen 51% rye, when you look at theirs versus ours, they have a lot more phenols in there. It's a much more, and that's a compliment. Of course, that is not a criticism. I love their rye. It's more of a traditional spicy rye. And a lot of that is because they're using new cooperage. And so our use of used cooperage doesn't get as much phenolic activity. And when I'm talking about phenolic activity, you're usually going to equate that with traditional rye characteristics of black pepper, probably clove on the palate, and just general spiciness. And so when we don't get that phenolic activation, we end up with a higher eugenol activation and extraction. It's not even extraction, it's transesterification, right? And so in that displacement reaction, we get a little more milder biking spices. And so I think at 3 or 4 years old, we fall flat to a traditional rye drinker. Even at 6 years old, we fall flat to a traditional rye drinker. But we think it's a brighter, sunnier side of rye. A way to that we like to explain it is we're a double barrel cast finish rye, aged and used cooperage. And the best way to put it is we're very citrus driven in our base notes rather than spice driven. And so that just adds a little bit of brightness to the caramel. But yeah, we're a group of family and friends just throwing shit at the wall, seeing what tastes good. And what I really think we excel at is barrel finishing, not just in our limousine rye, but also we have me and my daddy are horse traders big time. And anytime we get opportunities to buy large lots of aged whiskey, we do. We very proudly source aged goods and put them in packages and are very honest about that. But our favorite thing to do is make that aged good our own in some way. And so we have over 14 different species of wood that we use. We have 5 or 6 different size formats, I think, in the Dancing Goat. And all of those different permutations add up just to come back to what you asked me of what makes us unique is our willingness to try new things, to use different barrel formats, used, new, Spanish, Hungarian, whatever it is, let's throw it in a barrel and see what it tastes like.
All right. So how long has Dancing Goat been around?
So the project in general has been it's going on about 8 or 9, 10 years.
Okay.
We kicked it around as an idea for a long time and then started looking for a location that wanted to host us as a company. We built the Dancing Goat about 6 years ago. And so there was a long sourcing, there was a good amount of sourcing before we had a building. And then, it's been a passion project. My dad and I had another brand that we worked on called Rumchata that we ended up selling in the last year. But the success of that brand is what allowed us to build our facility and to source kind of the whiskey that we did and get kind of the consultants that we did. And
yeah, that one blew up. How did that thing catch on? What was the secret sauce with Rumchata? Why all of a sudden you never heard of it and then you can't walk in a store without seeing it? How does that happen?
I think Rumchata speaks it speaks volumes about a tremendous package. It's not a commodity product. It's a tremendous product and a great package. And I think of everyone here, actually, because I looked up all your labels here, you have the same thing. You have a great product and a great package. And then all you need to do is you need to get it to people, you need to get them to try it. Unfortunately for all of us on this panel and everyone else in whiskey, rye, and bourbon's really crowded right now with people sourcing and NDAs and stuff like that. But you got to realize, 12 years ago when we hit store shelves with Rumchata, there was no rum cream liqueurs at all. There was never a horchata liqueur. There was none of that. And so once people tried it for the first time, a lot of people that didn't even know what horchata was, they just went crazy because it's such a good profile. It's such a good drink. I think the other thing that's really to our credit with that product was the ingredients we used. I think a lot of people are going to look at it and say, oh, this is just another cream liqueur. But you got to realize, like, us podunk rednecks made so much of that stuff. And for us to make it without curdling, getting tons. I mean, everyone up on this panel knows the idea you get whiskey in a bottle without a finger floating in it. It's kind of amazing. You know what I mean? So, and I think that's part of the thing with Rumchata that was really, really resonated with people. It was such a new product. And cinnamon was really trending at the time. And, we were lucky. We had a good product and we got it out there, and we were very lucky that people were receptive to it.
So what did you guys do before Rumchata, before Dancing Goat? Where did you come from? What business were you in?
So my family's been in alcohol forever. So my daddy ran Jim Beam marketing. He was the head of global whiskeys at Beam for 20 years. Before that, he was at Brown-Forman for, I think like 6 or 7 years. And I think he also worked at a couple different distributors. And so he's always been in the sales and marketing of mostly commoditized alcohol. But he really, he's from Shawano, Wisconsin, which is where my family still owns land today. We still own Moss Farm up there. That's where all of our bee and honey comes from, or our honey and maple syrup comes from. But you know, he was a Corbel salesman in Wisconsin. And so, you know, he was in the trenches. He was selling brandy when no one was drinking brandy, and now we all drink it. And I'm not saying he's the one that did it, but he'll tell you he's the one that did it. You know? and I think that's the mark of a good salesman, right? That's the mark of every good salesman. And then my granddaddy, he was in petrochemical. So when he got out of the Korean War, he took his chemical engineering degree and he started working for Shell selling. He invented a fuel stabilizer called TFN. Which is an additive. It's a shampoo for your engine that you can put inside of fuel. It burns clean and goes away. And so he was in the lab a lot, and he was process driven. He was on the floor a lot, and he was playing bridge on a train when he was like 26 years old, and he smoked. You know, trains used to have bridge cars, and he smoked this whole car, took their money. And a guy looks at me and goes, "You want a job?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'd take a job." And we're doing what? And he goes, "Well, you're going to be the head of Fleischmann's Distillery." And that's how my granddaddy got into actual distillation. And that's so then from there, he became plant manager. I mean, he worked at Barton. He's the plant manager of Barton Solvents on the corporate side and on the Kentucky side. So he worked on both sides. What is now Green River Distilling, that old distillery, he was and not affiliated with that company at all. That's a defunct distillery that was, you know, revived, as well as the Diageo plant in Owensboro. And so he's constructed himself distilleries on 5 continents. He's worked in over 70 distilleries.
Wow.
But
before we taste, you got to tell me about this bottle. So this bottle is amazing. First of all, it's an unusual size, 100 milliliter. Tell us about this. And it's such a cool thing. It looks like a miniaturized version of the full size product. It's just pretty awesome. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So we, you know, we're very in tune with consumer packaging. We also, I think a lot of people on this panel are also very in tune with branding. And one of the things that we want to do is we want to create a specific package. Now that there's a couple more source companies on the market now that look not similar to our package, but the structure of the bottle is the same. And I think we all probably use Angel's Envy as a guide, right? But then like you look at our bottle and Angel's Envy bottle and the Heaven's Door bottle, you could line them all up, you know, and you'd only see one bottle. But when you look at that format, you have a nice big flat face for a label. You can go big or small on it. We did an embossed goat on there to kind of be consistency from each to one, so we can just focus on branding of that individual. But the glass itself was designed for ergonomics in mind. You know, I think everybody's hope is one day we're commodity whiskey, like one day we're in rails being poured all the time, right? Until then, I'll go on the back shelf. But a real win, I mean, shout out to Cedar Ridge. I think you're the only people selling more bourbon than Beam in your state. I think that's what everybody wants to be doing, right? And so at the end of the day, I was like, because I come from bartending and baking, which is a weird combo, but I did a lot of volume bartending down in Spring Break. And if I can become successful, eventually it's going to matter whose hands can fit on this. And so we went short here, because then if you have thinner hands, you can pour this way. For someone with bigger hands, it makes sense this way. And then this little bulb here, it kind of looks like the OG on my pot, but also if you're going, you know, noon to 6 on a Manhattan, well, it gives you a real good grip on it. You know what I'm saying? And so we wanted to build a package that was ergonomically easy to bartend with, because we were conceited enough to actually believe that one day we'd outsell Beam in our state. And I still think that we will one day. It's just whether we outsell Driftless Glen, who's smoking us currently in our state, you know. But I think at the end of the day, if we all work together, we provide great ergonomic packages, we can all be poured out of the rail. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, you gotta have dreams. All right, I'm gonna do for you the first time I've ever got to do this on a flagship whiskey. I'm gonna do a cork pop. I mean, this is a ABV Network signature. Normally, we're just getting samples. We do it on every one of our shows, whether it's the Bourbon Daily, the Bourbon Show. Let's see what we got here. Let's see if this is a winner. Whoa, that was good. That was for 100 milliliter. That's pretty darn good, and that's the winner for tonight, because I'm the only one popping. So that's not bad. That's not bad.
The 100 ml is a great size because it allows somebody to sample it and make a cocktail, which I know you had mentioned on how it was a unique size, 100 ml. If we just did it's the smallest format we make. We don't make 50 mLs, but our thought process was originally we were never going to sell them. It was just going to be our sales reps could leave it like as a tip for a bartender, or, you know, as a sample in an account, because it was enough for you to get a good, neat pour as well as a cocktail out of it.
Oh, yeah.
That was what I thought was on the 100 ml size.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. what as our group begins to taste this, nose it first. Let's have the group share some nosing notes, and in the chat, of course, if you wouldn't mind doing that. That's 100 milliliter cork pop right there. What do you think we're going to experience here, Nick, as we start to get into this whiskey?
It's a very balanced whiskey. Not a lot of when you think rye, 95 rye from MGP, everyone's immediately going to assume clove off the top or pepper off the top or dill or mint. I think those are the usual suspects that people get. It's a very balanced whiskey. And so when I say it's citrus driven, it has a little bit of lemon in the tasting notes or in the base notes. Well, if you get an empty glass, you empty it, you sniff it. It's almost like a caramel, which would be like it's almost like cola, which would be like a lemon and like a lemon and caramel blend if you're thinking in artificial ingredients. It's very approachable. We like using the used cooperage because we leave a lot of the green tannin out. Green tannin being the young tannin from bourbon barrels. Personally, my favorite barrels to fill right now are Woodford Double Oaks. Before that, I was using Chattanoogas. Chattanoogas, what I'm really looking for is what we're really looking for in our program is young bourbon. We just want you to get about 6 months of that tannin out of the way, and then we want to take the whole thing. Yeah. And so the reason for that is we're trying to avoid those early solvent notes because we know we're going to pick them up later on the back half towards 5 and 5.5. And so what you get is about 6-year-old rye whiskey without a lot of solvent off the top, a good amount of caramel and a good amount of just lemony brightness. Sometimes that lemon doesn't exactly come through as lemon in terms of like a lemon head, but what you usually see is it brightens up or lightens up the other traditional rye notes like the baking spices.
Okay.
A good amount of vanillin too.
You're getting a lot of citrus notes here, floral notes, vanilla. From Lenny, his kid might have done this. He has his kid sometimes do nosing notes. You got Captain Crunch Crunch Berries. It seems like Lenny's kid did that. We'll see.
Hey, is Lenny hammering deer? Lenny, bro, dude, we're in, I'm in central Wisconsin. If you want to hammer some deer, man, get up here. We'll take you out, dude. We'll take you. Let's go to Driftless. We'll get a bomb-ass meal at Driftless, and then we'll go hunting in the Driftless region. I'm just saying, man, if you're the
Lenny owns Deer Hammer Distillery out of Buena Vista, Colorado. So he's another distillery owner. It's
That's not the name of your distillery?
Deer Hammer, yeah.
Dude, I should have named it Coyote's Call, man. That's wicked, dude. Deer Hammer Distillery.
Let's taste this one. All right, what do you guys get on the taste? That is very, very pleasant. Definitely citrusy on the taste. I'm getting a little bit of lemon zing there. Yeah, it's very, very pleasant. Just nice finish. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I gotta be honest with you. When I was putting this at 3 years old in a package, which I probably shouldn't have, but I think a lot of people can understand like cash flow is a thing.
Economics,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
And so, but one of the things that I really got from a lot of people was it's not bad. It's just underwhelming. And that makes sense with using, at first we were using like third use because we didn't understand the chemistry of it yet. My granddaddy had passed away and didn't get to give us a lot of that knowledge. And so most of it was trial and error, but in using the young, like in starting to gravitate in a market that wants young bourbon released, not by me, because my rye didn't sell young, but by other people, we got access to some really cool barrels. Specifically, those Chattanooga barrels really opened our eyes about toasted heads and light chars on barrel. But I mean, I would take a 3-month-old 1 char profile 47, profile 29 from ISC all day over a brand new barrel, like a brand new 4 char. That being said, I just filled, we filled 48 4 char no toast today. So I mean, as soon as it's out one half of my mouth, it's out.
Nice. Well, Nick, great job here, man. Really enjoy what you got going on. Really great whiskey. And please stick around. We'll do a Q&A at the end where we get everybody an opportunity to ask you questions, okay?
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. And thanks for including us in this panel.
Absolutely.
Can't wait to try the rest of this booze.
When I called his office, they said Nick is very shy and probably won't be a great interview, but
yeah, they probably told you I was gonna be late too.
Yeah, so there you go. All right.
Thanks,
Next up, we got Blue Run here. So we got Mike Montgomery, co-founder, and Sammy Halpern, the global brand manager. Hey guys, how's it going?
We're doing awesome. We're going to let Dancing Goat handle this for us tonight, if that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah, for real.
I think he'd be
How
up
do
to
we
it.
follow that up? How do we
Yeah.
follow that up? That was unbelievable, man.
He's
Kudos,
awesome,
sir.
and he's very complimentary of everybody. He's done his research. He knows who's on with him and that. So it's cool stuff.
Oh,
love
I
it.
drink everybody's stuff here. I love all y'all.
I love that.
There you go.
love that.
I'm gonna order me some Dancing Goat as soon as I get off this call. Maybe while I'm on it, I might.
Yeah. Well, you definitely made some friends with this, providing that thing. Everybody was very excited about that. So it was cool. So tell us a little bit about Blue Run. Mike, how did this thing get started? When was the first time? I know it's a group that started this thing. So when was the first time you guys kind of started talking about this? And this may be something that you might be interested in doing.
Yeah, this is it's pretty wild actually, because we all come from a variety of different industries, and but it all kind of started kind of bubbling in late 2018, this started with my co-founder Jesse McKnight calling me one day and saying, in his beautiful Kentucky twang, "Hey, somebody wants to sell me some barrels of bourbon. What should we do?" And my initial immediate response was nothing. Sounds like somebody's got 2 barrels. That's not a business.
Right.
Maybe we could buy them and drink them, but that's probably about it. And so we spent more time talking about it, spent more time thinking about it, and it's like, I guess my sense is that we decided early on that we didn't there was a business here. There was definitely a path forward, but we didn't want to go the path of like the definition of insanity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we were going to go out and do this, we couldn't do it the same way it's been done forever and ever and ever. We wanted it to be different. We wanted it to be ours. We wanted it to stand out. We wanted to work with people we like, which, for Jesse and myself, we come from the political world. That's not always the case, right? Lots of sharp elbows, right? If this were a political call, we wouldn't have all your presenters on like patting each other on the back and encouraging people. It'd be like a shiv in the back instead.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, most industries are like that. I worked in the grocery business, and you think it's fun. You think, they're selling cookies and candy bars and barbecue sauce. They all hate each other. My boss, you would get literally, my boss told us, as sales guys, if they saw us like at a trade show talking to the competition, they would fire us on the spot. They're like, you hate your competition. They're not your friends. And so but this industry is different. It's cool.
This is different, and I think that that kind of spirit of camaraderie is critical. It's helped us significantly. We're none of us are insiders. We're all outsiders. Every single one of us, maybe except with the exception of Sammy, who's been in the industry longer than we have. But we're outsiders, and so we've kind of taken this approach of trying to do things differently, trying to package differently, trying to market differently, and trying to put product in the bottles that is going to be unique, that's going to be different, that's going to get people to think a little differently about the next bottle they're going to buy and why they're going to buy it.
Yeah. When we talked with Nick, we were talking a little the rum chata, but equivalent to that on the whiskey side might be you guys. I mean, it literally a brand. You said 2018 conversation started. Today, it's a brand that if you're a whiskey fan, who Blue Run is, and that's not an easy thing to do. It's not easy to get your people all over social media posting about your product and winning all these national awards you guys are winning, and just getting this general buzz. So so hats off to you guys. Amazing job in really what is a short amount of time when you're talking about the whiskey business.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying that. And it's mind blowing. It's like, I can't believe it myself. Right. Like we're certainly the new kids on the block. We haven't even been around for 2 years yet. October 22nd of this year will be our 2-year anniversary.
Wow.
And so we're fortunate to have had the chance to introduce ourselves to consumers during this time period where people were looking for things to do. They were sitting at home. They were locked in their homes. They're looking for new experiences, and it's. I think some of it was good decision making, and some of it was just kind of a sign of the times. But we also have this amazing helping hand by the name of Jim Rutledge, who Steve, you had him on a couple weeks ago, maybe.
Yes, yeah. Jim is a good friend, and yeah, he comes. Thankfully, he comes on a lot of our stuff and hangs out with us, so which is cool. I mean, he's a good guy, isn't he?
He's great, and the fact is, he's been so critical to everything we've done. Not only just in terms of thumbs up or thumbs down on source product, but we're even sourcing some of the barrels that he distilled.
Right. That's an exciting thing.
And so it's cool for him to be able to distill them and then work with us to figure out when they're going to be ready and when they should be bottled, and how to proof them, or hey, these need more time in the barrel, so stick them back and stick them back on the shelf and forget about them for a couple of years. It's really been pretty special for us to have him by our side. It's funny too, because Jim's old school, right? You know that Jim is as old school as they come. Yeah. And he doesn't like the sizzle of marketing all that much.
Yeah.
Right. He sees that world a little bit differently, but I think he's intrigued by it as well. And so it's kind of fun. It's almost like what we've attempted to do is kind of marry the heritage with a little bit of modernization.
Right.
Right. Like
frankly, it's probably been a good partnership for him too, because again, he is old school and he is still trying to open up his own distillery. He just, told us he's in the process of still trying to get that going. And as a new distillery owner, should that happen, and hopefully it does, because Jim wants it to happen. I want to make it whiskey.
Fingers crossed. It would be the greatest.
Yeah. But I mean,
I really would.
For him to be able to see how you guys have done this, I think has probably been helpful and eye-opening for him if he does get to start that brand.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique approach. I mean, who would have thought that putting a butterfly on a bottle would be something that would grab people's attention?
Yeah.
And it's just like, when you look at this bottle here, this is the Dancing Goat bottle, right? It stands out, it pops. It's something you want to look at. I want to hold it, right? And I kind of view it as no different than what we're trying to do, which is you want a bottle that's going to pop off the shelf, that's going to grab people's eyes, grab their attention, but won't be a letdown when you open it and you pour it, right? And so those are difficult kind of bogeys, right? Like, and it's not lost on us that we are kind of pushing a premium price, but you can't put a premium price on a bottle and then have it be lackluster. Yeah. So, like Jim always says, and I'm sure he's told this to you, Steve, a million times, the way the bottle looks can get people to buy there first. The way it tastes will get them coming back.
Exactly. Well, last question before we get to tasting, because that's always the big thing. So folks, you can pour. We'll start talking nose and notes in a second here, but the last question before we do that, what's the long-term for Blue Run? At some point, could there be a distillery down the road, or is it always going to be a source product, or what do you think if you're looking into the crystal ball?
Global domination.
Yeah, heck yeah. You're on that trajectory right now, so why not?
Yeah. Yep. It's harder and harder to find source product of high quality. Yeah. It's harder and harder to find excess capacity at distilleries, and we've been working with Bardstown Bourbon Company. We're very, very fond of the folks at Bardstown. They've been great partners, but they're also extremely popular. Mm-hmm. Right. We did some contract distillation at Castle and Key. We've got some other potential distillation partnerships coming up as well, including All Nations, which hasn't opened yet. But there is probably some fascination with the idea of controlling our own destiny.
Yeah.
Right. So whether that's getting more time with our current partners, or fingers crossed, Jim opening up the JW Rutledge Distillery, or potentially something of our own at some point in time. But that's a really big leap, and I know everybody here tonight has experience with that. But we're young, and I think Nick mentioned earlier that what was the line? Something about you're lucky if you don't end up with a finger in your bourbon. And we're still learning, we're still growing. So we've got a lot of runway left, and I guess I'll just kind of leave it open for interpretation at this point in time. I'll just say everything's under consideration.
Okay, everything's on the table. All right.
Yep.
What are we getting on the nose here, folks? As we start sharing some notes here. Butterscotch, chocolate, hazelnut. Yeah, those are
a lot of
very
fun
good
stuff with this whiskey. A lot of fun. And I gotta shout out Nick, man. Rum Chata. My family has represented Rum Chata down here in Florida for a couple of years now. So awesome brand. Absolutely love to be a part of it. So small world.
Yeah. Dark cherries, cedar cinnamon, baking spices, butterscotch again, a third butterscotch or oaky butterscotch on one of them. Bright and citrusy. Nice. Well, let's taste it. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, that is very nice. It definitely citrus notes there. Kind of like a pound cake taste to it too, which is very nice. Cedar, yeah, I get the cedar. Cinnamon, butter shots. Nice. What else you guys give?
Sammy, what are you getting there?
A lot of fun flavors with this whiskey. I mean, the most fun that I have with it, I mean, you have like the front palate that it's a bit sweet. You do get those original kind of vanilla and cherry kind of as it graduates towards the mid palate. You get some of those spices, some of those baking spices that are a lot of fun. And then towards the end, I mean, you get that sweetness. I got a really fun one the other day. That like shaved coconut that's just a bit cooked and a bit like on top of like a dessert or some kind of key lime pie. I love that comparison, like that like sweetness and roundness of like a sweet coconut. It's not too sweet, but it's got that right amount of sweetness. Definitely vanilla, baking spices, dark cherries, a little bit of cedar. I love it.
Yeah. Very good stuff. It super long finish. Yeah, I get that. Nice, just kind of hangs with you. Mid palate for sure. So that's also good. So very good stuff. And please stick around till the end, and we will have a Q&A where our folks can ask you about what you got going on. Okay.
We will be here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Cheers.
Absolutely. All right. Next up is Reneé Bemis from Driftless Glen out of Baraboo, Wisconsin. Hey, Renee, how you doing?
I'm fabulous. How are you doing?
Very good. And tell us a little bit about Driftless Glen. How did it get started?
Oh, that's the fun story. So in about 2010 or so, my husband's a car dealer and I'm an artist, and he gets approached to do things all the time. And the person that did his marketing for his car dealerships came to him and said, I think we should open up a distillery. And I was like, well, we don't know anything about it. We don't know.
Right.
So he's like, oh, no big deal. We can do it. We had Vendome do the stills and whatever. But he said to us, for $3 million, we can open up this distillery in Baraboo, Wisconsin. I was like, with 50-50 partners. So my husband says, he's a car dealer. He says, for $1.5 million, okay, I'm in. We'll do it. Well, we have an acronym. It's called BAM. Bring another million, because that ain't it. Right? Well, make a long story short, Dave Pickrell was our consultant, and he helped design the distillery. Yeah. And so we opened, we built it from scratch, and we put our first barrel up in 14.
Mhm.
And in 15, and of course, this now the money has been a lot more than than the $3 million. And our partner couldn't keep up. And finally, we opened the doors and we opened our restaurant in 15. And we said to him, hey, man, we have different thought processes of what we're doing. So either you buy us out, we'll buy you out, or we'll sell it.
Right.
And he said, here are the keys.
Yeah.
And so we bought him out. And guess what? We learned a lot about the distilling business because we really didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And, you talk about people, this community is a great community. They help one another. And I remember walking in, because in the beginning, he had us having screen printed our bottles. It's not the bottle we have now. They were screen printed. And I went into the fellow and I said, hey, I'm thrown into this. He goes, well, I'll tell you what, you screen print with us. I'm not going to tell you who it was. You screen print with us and I'll get you your glass and your corks and your tamper strips and capsules and all that. Yeah, I go, okay, great. What are you going to charge us? He goes, nothing. That'll be part of, screen printing with us. I was like, oh my God, there's someone
Right.
that's going to be. Well, about 2 months later, after I started researching and everything, I called him in, I drew a line in the sand. I go, okay, that's it. Because it was about 30,000 more than, he put on it. But the guy who does our corks, his name is David Paulson. I picked up the phone and I called him, and he must have talked to me for about 2 hours. This is when we first started. And he walked me through stuff and he said, anything you want to know. And to this day, I get my corks from him, and I'll be loyal as the day is long because that guy helped me through so much and learn. And so if I needed something, he helped us.
Yeah.
So anyway, we started distilling, and we've put up over 7,000 barrels, and we do mostly bourbon and rye, though we have some unique things in there. We do some cast finish things, and we have single malts, and we're releasing a wheated bourbon this year. It's a 5-year. We waited 5 years.
Okay.
We have about 50 barrels. It's really special. We've had people come in and we've tapped barrels and they'll like, release it now. And we waited. We wanted it to be a 5-year release. So that's coming out. And then we have a bunch of different products, and we have fun. Like Nick says, we have a good time. We let our distillers have fun. We will say, let's try this and we'll try that. And we've thrown stuff down the drain because if it's not good, we're just not going to have it.
Not going to force it out there. Yeah.
We're not going to put our name
right.
on it.
Yeah.
And you all talk about your packaging. And so again, like I said, we didn't know anything about the whiskey business. And so my husband and I said, let's do a recon. And we were down in Florida, and we went to a Total Wine. We said, let's walk up and down the whiskey aisle and let's see, what stands out and what's there. And the only thing I could think of is, oh my God, there's so many whiskeys and no one's going to remember our name, because our name I couldn't remember it for the first month. It was one of those things like, oh my God.
Right.
So, and the reason the name is Driftless is because that's where we are. We're in the Driftless region, and we're where the glaciers stop. So our water is sweet and wonderful and delicious. And, people always talk about Kentucky bourbon, but, Wisconsin's got some great bourbon. So anyway, that's why the bottle, yes, it does. That's why the bottle is square. We really didn't see any square bottles.
Mm-hmm.
And his and my thumbprint are on either side. So the theory was, this was the art side of me coming in saying, people might not remember the name, but they'll go, get that square bottle, it's got thumbprints on it. And at some point they'll remember your name, but in the beginning, maybe they don't. And so that's how the bottle has come to, that's how we got that. But we love it. We jumped in with, head first, and I know an awful lot, although I'm not the distiller, but I can, talk a lot about it.
Right.
And we have great team. We have a very young team. Our distillers are in their late 20s. And our office manager or operations manager, she's been with us. She's our oldest employee, and she's amazing. She's just 31. So we have a very, very young group of people there. and we're very transparent. We have meetings when we go up there every week. We have meetings where a person from every aspect of the distillery, whether it's the restaurant, the front end, the distillery, the warehouse, marketing, we're all in there. And so everybody knows what the other people are doing. And we're all held accountable for doing our jobs. So, yeah, that's kind of it. That's sort of our story. We have some fun stories about, I know Nick mentioned something about our 51 rye. I mean, that was a happy mistake because we wanted to do a rock and rye, a drink. We thought about doing something for young people to get them interested in drinking rye whiskey. And it was a flavored rye whiskey. We did 4 flavors. We made it fun. It was vanilla spice and a rock and rye this and rock and rye that. Anyway, make a long story short, we needed a very high rye. And so we did a run, and we get about 9 barrels when we do a run. So we saved a little bit, and because we sent it off to a flavoring company to do some flavoring. And they so we stuck the rest of it into barrels, and they lost the sample. So we weren't smart. Right. So we did it again. We did another run, and we then sent them samples and didn't think of saving it again. We put the next in 9 barrels, and we have 9 barrels. And that time they couldn't get it right. So we did it a third time. Anyway, make a long story short, we had 27 barrels of this rye in barrels. And in about 2 years, we said, you know what, let's taste that. And we went, oh my God, that's really good. Yeah. So the rock and rye didn't make it, but the 51 rye is the one that, people know us for. And we put up like 150 barrels a year of just that product from a mistake.
Nice.
So it's pretty cool.
There's no mistakes in whiskey. It's happy accidents.
Hey, and I see it just something about our pink label.
Pink labeled? Yep. And then about the stills height too. We got 2 questions. Yeah. So
okay. The pink label, we did, very dear friends of ours have gone through breast cancer, and we wanted to do something. And we know that people do it with vodka, but we thought there's a lot of women that drink whiskey.
Right.
This year, the bottle is going to be pinker. Okay. We think it wasn't pink enough last time. So trust me, when you see it this time, you'll see it because it's bright pink. But we I forget how much, but it's like $3 or $5 per bottle goes to breast cancer awareness. So last year we raised about $15,000. And what was interesting, the way we did it was each distributor got to choose where they wanted their money from their state, where they wanted it to go. We didn't put it into one particular place. So we wanted the distributors to also partake in this and push it so that they could say it went into their own state. And so that's what we did.
That's cool. That's cool.
We have a 44-foot continuous.
44 foot. Nice.
44-foot continuous column. We have a 550 gallon pot still, all from Vendome. And then we have a 350 pot still that we use for our clears, but the others are
very
all
cool. Very cool. Let's go ahead, and if you haven't poured your whiskey already, please do. Let's start working on those nosing notes. As I asked Renee here about what we're going to be tasting here. Tell us a little bit about that as the team starts to put together some nosing notes for
So
you.
this is our bourbon. We do this is small batch. I think there's about 18 to 20 barrels that we'll pick. They're at least 4 years old, but some might be older. Just depends.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 60% corn, 20% rye, 20% malted barley. So it's all grain. Everything we do is grain to glass, which is really kind of neat. We keep everything local. Our grains come from the Midwest. We keep everything local. The spent grain goes to the local farmers, which is kind of fun because the cows love it when they see it coming. And then the effluent goes to an anaerobic digester that then produces energy. So we're 100% sustainable, and so that's another thing that we're kind of happy with.
Absolutely.
So you should get some spice. You should smell some caramel, vanilla. I don't know. Cream-
Campfire, honey, summer melon, orange zest, vanilla, pudding, baking spices, caramel, dark brown sugar, cream corn, vanilla, off the top
Bubble
of
gum. Bubble
orange
gum.
cream, bubble gum, creamsicle, bubble gum specifically. You got to get into the brand so we know what we're talking here. Smarties followed by red apple peel. So yeah, it's good. It's good stuff.
Smarties are like my favorite, so I might have stuck a few in there. You never know.
Yeah. Caramel,
Um,
cinnamon, baking spices, cherry
So
candy.
it's at 96 proof, which is our classic. And I think this is batch number 50.
Batch 50. Okay. Let's give this thing a taste. If you haven't done so, let's see what we got going on here. Oh yeah. Definitely dark caramel. I mean, it's sweet.
We
Cream corn. Yeah.
age it in it's 4 char. So
Or char. Mhm.
yeah, we do.
Yeah. Yeah. Little spice there for sure.
Nice thing about Baraboo is that and we have one rack house that is heated, but most of our original rack house was not. So you really do get the weather swings within the rack house. So you
Mhm.
have the extreme cold and then, the heat and so forth. So you do have a lot of contraction. You pull a lot out of the barrels.
Yeah. Bourbon ball,
Yeah.
peanut, getting cream corn, caramel on the finish.
The age is at least 4
Okay.
years old of all the barrels. And though I know a couple of people have talked about being sourced, we didn't source. The reason we didn't source was mainly because, again, as I told you, we really didn't know a lot about the whiskey business. So we know that, like you say, the first time you try it, if it's no good, you're not going to try it again. So we waited, and we were concerned about the fact that if we sourced it and then we switched it to ours, what would happen if they either loved it when it was sourced and they went to ours and they didn't like it, or vice
Right.
versa, they didn't like the source, so they'd never try ours. So we sucked it up and we waited until it was old enough to bring it out. We did bring out a young rye. It was a little less than 2 years old when we first were starting, just because the distributors wanted the darks. So we had to bring it out. We brought it out at cast strength. It would be like 124 or something, but it was good. It was really good.
Mhm.
Every once in a while you'll see someone that said, I kept a bottle of it, but otherwise we just waited. And now most of our single barrel is all 5 year, and we're hoping to get to the point where our blends are all 5 year plus, but
Yeah.
we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Okay. Just a good note. So you did have a question about what states you're available. So distribution stuff. So where you at?
We're in about 22 states. We're in the UK, going into Germany as well as Costa Rica, but Wisconsin's still our main state.
Okay.
It sells the most. We're in Florida. We're in all the Winn-Dixies, and we've got some good distribution. Isn't that the thing that we're all striving for, is distribution? People always
yeah.
talk about everything else, and you say everything is one thing, but if you can't get the distribution or you can't get the sales out there, that's the kicker. That's the difference between here and there. That's it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes having the big guys isn't always the best, because you still need to sell it, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to sell it any better for you.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
You get lost in those portfolios.
We actually
Yep.
turned down a national contract a couple of years
Yeah.
ago because we thought we would get lost.
Yeah. Well, Renee, thanks for being part of this. Please stick
Thank you.
around. We got that Q&A at the end. And I've even got a question for you during Q&A. I want to talk a little bit about your art career. We'll get to that at the end when we go to Q&A. Okay.
Yeah. love
All right.
to.
All right. Next up, last but not least, Murphy Quint from Cedar Ridge out of Swisher, Iowa. Hey, Murphy, how's it going, man?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Absolutely. Tell us a little bit about getting the business going. Now, you and I have talked, you've been on the Bourbon Show, but remember, I have to ask for the audience, and of course we're recording this, so I'll act like I don't know any of this stuff. So tell us a little bit how you guys got started in this business.
Absolutely. And thanks again for having me on. And I recognize a number of the people in the crowd from Instagram. So it's great to get some FaceTime with everybody. And quick shout out to the Midwestern distilleries here doing awesome stuff. It's so great to see representation from the Midwest doing cool stuff here. So just wanted to mention that quickly. So yeah, I'm Murphy Quint. I'm the head distiller at Cedar Ridge Distillery. We opened up back in 2005, and the path that we took to get from where we started to where we are now was very wacky. A lot of twists and turns along the way. We are primarily a bourbon distillery located in Swisher, Iowa, of pretty decent size. But if you look to where we started back in 2005, we actually started out as a garage winery. I mean, we very, very small scale Iowa winery. We rented out a garage off the side of another business. And this was my parents that started the company. And they were pretty much just kind of screwing around, having some fun, chasing some passion. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to differentiate their winery by also being a bit of a distillery. You know, what's going to make people come to our Iowa winery? Oh, well, we also produce some brandy, some rum, some vodka, something that these other people don't do. And it might just work as a hook to get people here. Well, obviously that did work quite well. And pretty quickly, our business model started to transition into being more of a distillery that differentiates by also being a winery. And that's essentially where we're at today. So we've obviously evolved a lot since then. While we are no longer in a garage, every building we have is filled to the brim. I'm sure that the other distillers on this panel can relate to that. Somehow we're always overflowing, no matter how much space we have. That's a common thing in our industry. But we've evolved into a 70-some acre campus. You know, we've got 6 different barrel sheds, a couple different production floors, headquarters. So we kind of have our own thing going on out here in Iowa. Swisher, Iowa, by the way, is located right between Cedar Rapids and Iowa City. And if you're ever in the area, I would love to have you out here, come out for a tour, see what we're all about. I can talk about it all day, but the best way to understand what we're doing and who we are is to actually get out here for yourself. Really good scenery. We've got a nice kitchen. Yeah, a lot of fun stuff going on out here at Cedar Ridge.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So, and tell us a little bit about how you learned the business, because that's an interesting story as well.
Yeah, so you know,
there's a little diversion in there that it's an unexpected turn, right?
Yeah, exactly. So me in particular, so I obviously, my parents started Cedar Ridge back in 2005, and I was still in high school at that point in time, and I thought it was the weirdest thing in the world that they were doing this. It really came out of nowhere, and I was very confused by it. In a way, I still am confused by what got them so interested in this. Anyway, I was helping out on nights and weekends. I'm just trying to put some fuel in my gas tank as a kid, you know. But as time went on, I got really, really interested in what we were doing. Not only the products that we were making, but also the industry and the people within it. I mean, you've seen tonight the panelists before me. I mean, just awesome people, and we have an entire industry of that. And so anyway, I got really, really interested in this stuff. In about 2010, my girlfriend at the time, wife now, we had just finished up college, and we were looking to just kind of get a change of pace going. So we loaded up a moving van and just showed up in Denver, Colorado. I mean, actually just showed up. I mean, we didn't have technically a place to stay. We had a lead on one, but you know, we just showed up and we decided we were going to make it work out there. And while we were out there, I took a couple odd jobs, but I was emailing Stranahan's Colorado Whiskey about every week or two, just asking, hey, any openings? And I essentially annoyed them enough that they eventually hired me. So I would just probably stop calling and emailing them. So I got in with them, and that was a real turning point in my career. The people that I worked with at Stranahan's, the things that I learned there were invaluable to the rest of my career. Not so much even just on like the processes in general, but just I'm also a director of operations now, and just the order of operations, you know, how much space you need in order to accomplish everything in a given period of time, how to streamline things. It was just really, really interesting. And another thing that opened my eyes when we were out there that I did eventually bring back to Cedar Ridge was I saw the number of people in Colorado that were willing to camp out in an alleyway 3 nights in advance for a special release whiskey, you know, back in like 2012, before this boom really even took off. So what happened there was I was exposed to local support, and how if you come out with a good product that the local community rallies behind, it can be really, really big. It can be something special. And so anyway, while I was out there learning all that, my parents were back here in Iowa, and they had started kind of dabbling around with some bourbon production. Like I mentioned early on, we were more of a winery that differentiated by also making some spirits, but they had started dabbling with bourbon, but they had this light bulb moment, hey, we're in the middle of the corn state. We need to be producing more bourbon. And that was right when I was calling them saying, hey guys, if you do some special stuff, like locals out here in Colorado, they're camping out in alleyways waiting for this stuff. I think Iowans would have a very similar point of view and perspective on that front. And I think they would come out and support. So anyway, just all that kind of worked together to create a perfect storm. We eventually started putting away bourbon in pretty crazy quantities, or at least what we thought was. And we really hit the ground running on that front and haven't turned back.
Has anybody sleeping outside the distillery for releases yet at your place?
No, for some reason, no one comes out here and sleeps in our alley. I have no idea.
I'm going to. When I come up
idea.
there, you're going to show up to work and I'll be sleeping on the ground. I wouldn't even know why. I'm just like, whatever the release for today is, I want to buy. So
we had to do a slightly different strategy. I mean, one advantage that they had out there in Colorado, at Stranahan's at least, was it was in the city of Denver, and here in Iowa, we're in rural Iowa, and we're not exactly in a place where people are coming out to camp out unless they're literally in tents and campers, because we're in rural Iowa. But, so what we do is we do some special release stuff, a bunch of allocated items as well. But we focus on interesting releases through distribution as opposed to doing them all on site. So we do some on-site stuff too, but that's not where we're trying to create those lines and those people camping out as much.
Mm-hmm. So, give us an idea about what the experience is like if we would come up to visit, though, because again, you're kind of off the beaten path a little bit, but that's okay. Bourbon fans like to travel, so entice us to get up there. What are we going to see?
Absolutely, and first, let me talk a little bit about Iowa. I know not many people have Iowa on the top of their list for places to travel to, and that's I understand. On paper, it doesn't have the most sex appeal, I suppose, but if you get out here, you will see that it's an incredibly beautiful state with so much to do. Whether you're in the rural areas or in the cities, really, really cool spot. So please come to Iowa, even if you don't stop at Cedar Ridge. Check out Iowa. While you're here, though, I would appreciate if you'd swing by. We have a bunch of cool stuff going on out here. And when you drive up to our facility, it's almost confusing because of the way that we evolved. I keep mentioning that we started out as a winery. Well, surrounding our property is 12 acres of vineyards. So, I mean, first thing you see when you're pulling up is just vineyards all over the place. And then you get into our tasting room, and, it's a very Midwestern style, basic, but still pretty elegant tasting room with an event center. We've got wedding venues and live music all the time. We've got, a brick oven for wood-fired pizzas and some really good foods. So there's a lot of entertainment out here. And then you come out and do tours as well. You will see that we're using every square inch of our production floor at all times. So right now we're filling a little over 200 barrels per month with whiskey, in addition to our wine work, in addition to some brandy, some vodka, and all the other bells and whistles. But so we are, considering the space that we have, we're cranking here at all points in time. So on the tours, you will see that we have people working constantly filling barrels, making messes, and getting their hands dirty. And it's fun. It's a different style tour. A lot of the bigger classic distilleries that you go to, it's very tour friendly and built around that, which I very much respect and hope to one day be at, to be honest. But there's also something to touring a distillery that is, it's old school. It's one that the employees are doing a lot of manual labor. Everyone's, if something breaks, we're fixing it. We're not getting it contracted. It's very Iowan style, and we're using the space like crazy.
Absolutely. So as we start working on our nosing notes here, folks, if you haven't poured your whiskey already, please do, and start working on those nosing notes. Tell us a little bit, Murphy, about your bottled and bond bourbon here that we're going to be tasting in just a second here.
All right. So this is our bottled and bond bourbon. This is one of my favorite things that we make at our distillery. So what this is made from is our standard Iowa bourbon, which, as Nick mentioned earlier, thank you for that. That was very kind. It did become the #1 selling bourbon in the state of Iowa. That's our Iowa bourbon flagship product. So this is the exact same whiskey, exact same mash bill. However, the way that we select these particular barrels that go into our bottled and bond is our myself and our general manager. It's an annual tradition. The two of us work together to pick our favorite barrels that we can come across and blend them into our bottled and bond bourbon. So we try to make this one of our more premium offerings, one of our top shelf Cedar Ridge whiskeys, even though it is that same mash bill as our standard Iowa bourbon, which is 74% corn, 14% rye, 12% malted barley. All of these are aged in independent stave New American Oak char number 3, for at least for the bottled and bond. From time to time, I do experiment with char number 4, but this particular one is exclusively char number 3. And then one other note I'll mention is that in bottled and bond, there are 2 seasons in bottled and bond. There's January to June or July through December. And these barrels all came from that January through June season. So the spring season, and that can make somewhat of a difference because very similar to what Renee mentioned earlier, we do not climate control any of our barrel sheds or our rick houses, whatever you want to call them. We want the temperature inside to be the exact same temperature as outside because we want Mother Nature to have an impact on the aging of our final product. And so it can make a difference if something has seen, say 5 springs and 4 winters, or the opposite. You can have slightly different flavor profiles. So that's always fun to pay attention to.
Absolutely. Just put the note out there. What on the nosing notes? What are you guys catching on this one?
Yeah, let's see what we're getting here.
Let's see what we got. Light caramel, candied orange. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Do you notice a difference in the crops? Yes. Yeah. You talked a little bit about that, right? Between the 2 distilling seasons.
Did you notice a difference in the crop? Sorry, what can you elaborate on that a little bit there, Jim? It's also moving too fast for me.
Yeah, it's coming in hot.
Yeah.
Jim's coming online here, I think.
All right, yeah. No worries.
Go ahead, Jim. Or not, Jim.
All right, so yeah, basically I was just wondering, like on the end product, I know with the bottle and bond, it's like you got the 2 different growing seasons, but I was wondering with the, especially with the corn and being a really high corn mash bill, do you notice, like, are you getting a lot more sweetness in like one season versus the other, or are you really seeing a major, some kind of play or some kind of difference between your growing seasons there?
Great question. So when I said the 2 seasons, like you mentioned,
distilling seasons, yeah.
Yep. I did mean, and I apologize, I wasn't very clear on that. I did mean barrel entry, distillation and barrel entry season. So that's when we're putting them in the barrel as one of those 2 seasons. All the corn that we utilize is from the state of Iowa, and that does all come from the same growing season here. So I cannot elaborate on that as I do imagine it would make a difference, but yeah, we will see some minor differences though when it comes down to distillation and barrel entry date between those 2 seasons. I mean, not to the point where it's super consistent. However, if you have 10 barrels from one season and you sit them next to 10 barrels from the other season, you will find some similarities between the 2 batches, if that makes sense. So I can't say that, every single barrel that we put away in August is going to be very caramel, and then every barrel that we put away in the month of March is going to be very butterscotch or anything quite like that. But I can say that they do finish slightly differently. And then the 2 different batches will have a lot of similarities based on the season. So great question.
You're getting a lot of great notes here. Vanilla, great orange, candied ginger, plum smoke, lovely floral bouquet, more ginger, plum and smoke again, more ginger, floral, brown sugar. This is good when you get a lot like that. So let's taste this thing. Last one of the night. Cheers, gang. Let's see what we got here.
Cheers, everybody. Got ahead. I cheated. I tasted early.
Oh, yeah, that happens. Oh yeah, that's delightful. It's kind of sweet desserty. It's really really good there. A little spice too to it. So it kind of sticks around a little bit, that spice. Nick drank his already this afternoon. Okay.
By the way, Nick, I want to get in on that hunting trip you were talking about.
Where you're hunting the deer with hammers? Yeah. Okay. That'll be fun. That'll be fun. Very nice. What else? What else you guys getting as you taste this one? Great old fashioned.
Absolutely. Great old fashioned. You got it.
Right. Yeah. Heck yeah.
Absolutely. General feedback, thumbs up, medium,
thumbs
down.
Up. Thumbs up. I got the double thumbs up from Mr. Bill. So there you go. That's really
huge.
good. That is huge. Candy corn, in a positive way, as McNew's saying, because she's notoriously doesn't say a whole lot of good about candy corn. Balanced, good flavors all over the mouth. Honey, nice spice, great finish. So really good stuff. Really good stuff. I like them all, says Mr. Bell. So there you go. There you go. Everyone gets the thumbs up from Mr. Bill. Feel free to use that in your marketing campaigns. Yeah, Mr. Bill gave you the thumbs up. That's huge.
2 thumbs up from Mr. Bill.
Kettle corn plus vanilla, a little pepper spice. There you go. There you go. Well, Murphy, thank you so much, man. Really appreciate it, buddy. It's good stuff. Good stuff.
Appreciate the opportunity and a ton of fun with you guys.
Absolutely. Well, let's hear a round of applause. Let's hear it for all of our great distillery representatives tonight. Really did an awesome job. They brought some great whiskey for us, didn't they?
Yes.
So, all right. We're going to open it up for Q&A. Let's load up the queue and let's get those questions going. Who wants to go first? You can open up your mic. Feel free. Lenny is going to be doing the next in July. He's going to handle, we're only going to do single malts. He tells me he's going to track down the best single malts in the country. So Lenny from Deerhammer is actually coordinating this. And he told me he's going to have this done by next Tuesday, because I like to promote these when we have all the group all together and say, hey, the tickets are available for sale. So Lenny, how close are you?
Well, I think I told you I was going to have it done 2 days ago.
Right. So I'm hopeful for next Tuesday, because that's when we get the group together again.
Had a few things going on. I think I can do it. I'm working on it. I got the list. Murphy, you would have been in there had you not been on the event.
No problem.
I like your guys' stuff though. Yeah, definitely. Single malt tasting coming up.
Question for the panel. So from Adam Stumpf, specifically to our non-Kentucky groups here, and I guess everyone technically is non-Kentucky. The Blue Run group is from all over. They, of course, partnered and affiliated with Bardstown Bourbon Company. But so they want to know what's the biggest driver success in selling a non-Kentucky bourbon, overcoming that stigma for our folks here representing those brands. And Adam Stumpf, of course, is owner of Stumpy Spirits in Columbia, Illinois, if you're into that. So he may use this in his own marketing if you guys come up with something really good. So what do you got?
Well, I can say that the stigma, there is a stigma, because most people, well, the people are learning, but for a while there, people thought you couldn't say it was bourbon unless it was from Kentucky.
It amazes me it still comes up, right? We got to be past that at this point, right?
Right.
We're not.
And
It still comes up. Yeah.
it does still come up, but what we try to say is that why people think about what they think about Kentucky bourbon is because of the water. So we play on the fact that we have the Baraboo River. The water comes down. It goes through the Driftless area. It was from the last glacier, goes through 700 foot of aquifer of its own sand, and so we play on our water, and that's one of the things that we do to try to help go around, because that's what they think is that you can't call it bourbon unless it's from Kentucky.
Right.
Right. Yeah. But people are learning, they are getting it. And you're seeing, distilleries pop up everywhere.
Lenny from Deerhammer gets this stuff so much. He has a bumper sticker that says, "No one cares you're from Kentucky." So
there you go.
I'll send it to anyone who wants it.
And it said, send Lenny a direct message. She'll get you one of those. So it's pretty awesome.
Hey, I have a question for everyone, for the distillers, and I guess other than Cedar Ridge, because they're bottled and bond, but how are you deciding what proof that you guys are releasing at? Because we have a 93, a 95, and a 96 proof. How are you coming to that decision?
Taste.
Well, we do 96 proof unless we do cast strength. That is the proof for our bourbon and our rye. And other than our 51 rye, which is 102 proof, because it's 51 rye, 102 proof, 100% driftless. We joke about it. But that's what we figure is a good proof for us. That's what we like.
Murphy, how about you?
You say me?
Yeah.
I will touch on that real quick. And like you mentioned, ours is 100 proof because it's bottled and bond. So obviously we didn't have a choice there, but I want to say a couple things on that. I mean, how we do it here is I imagine, like pretty much everyone else, is we do try to pick the best proof that is going to best showcase our product. So, I mean, that's something that we're going for. For instance, on our quintessential American single malt, which I'm a huge American single malt whiskey guy, we chose 92. We do a lot of cask strength bourbon. We do a lot of 86 proof bourbon and rye. But another thing you have to consider there is that it doesn't just stop at quality. Unfortunately, that'd be a very cool world to live in. There's also many other things you have to factor in there. For instance, what shelf price are you going to try to sit on? Who are you targeting? Because those two things, those are also going to have a huge impact on what proof you release at. I mean, if you're going to release something at cask strength, it's certainly not going to be able to sit on the shelf at 40, 45 bucks. It's going to have to be a lot more than that. So in addition to trying to best showcase your product, you also have to consider the costs, the price point you're trying to compete within, and the target consumer as well.
All right. Nick, you want to weigh in on that one too?
Me? You want me to talk? Yeah, I can. I think it's interesting that we all had similarly proofed products, and I can kind of speak to that as I talk about our process for why we pick our own. Everything that we do with Limousine Rye is Limousine Rye is a blending and a finishing project. It's a source good that we already knew how to move fluids from our time owning, mine and my dad's time owning bottling plants and with Demulchancy, but we didn't know how to blend whiskey and how to finish whiskey. And so that's we made a really kind of, when I actually talk about the process in depth, it's very convoluted, and that's intentional because I wanted a lot of touches on it. I wanted a lot of tastes on it, and I wanted a lot of sensory. I wanted to be in those barrels. I want to be learning. And so everything we do with Limousine Rye was a process we call taste proofing. We don't actually have a proof that we picked. We pick the best proof for that batch, according to us. And what we found is that range, and automatically I limited that range, right? So I guess I am a liar off the bat because it isn't the best because I don't look at everything. Like anything under 86, I don't look at because I don't filter my products. I only filter products for people that really want my products filtered, that I bought a single barrel and beat me up about it. Otherwise, you're probably going to get some horsetail or some barrel char in your spirits. And I'm sorry, that's part of what we do. It's what I love about this stuff. So I don't filter really anything that's brown unless I have to. And when we do have to, we kind of go high screen sizes. We can use an 800 micron to get around that. Even a 50 micron non-chill filter for some people, if we have to do it, right, we'll do it. But the reason why we don't go under 86 is because of chill haze, which happens when basically your product gets cold and the solubilities of lipids in suspension becomes less, and they coagulate in the bottle, or they kind of precipitate out. And so when we taste proof, we look at everything from about 99 to 87. We've only had one batch come in under 92. I thought that was interesting. I think it's really interesting that all of us pick 90s for our things, and we are students of chemistry. And so when you look at alcohol as a polar solvent, because that's really all it is, it's a polar solvent. It's a solvent that can have more or less of a concentration either direction, depending on how diluted it is. And it has different powers in terms of extraction of tannins, right, in a barrel, but also on your palate. When you want something to finish well, it needs to hang on the palate, it has to exhibit what we call demulchancy. And so demulchancy is the tendency for something to have viscosity and to linger on the palate. It's not a real term, it's like a baking term. It's also a bartending term. So when you look at polar solvent, I'm getting there, I promise. When you look at polar solvents in terms of demulchancy and your palate, things that are more viscous are going to leave a longer finish. And so when you look at the chemical of ethanol, if you tie up all of the free ethanol and you do not have too much extra water, that will actually literally be the most viscous state of that ethanol. And with actual pure ethanol, that usually tends to be around 94 or 93 proof is when pure ethanol would be most viscous when diluted. Notice it's no longer pure because it's been diluted, right? But the absence of impurities, which is not whiskey, because whiskey depends on impurities in the sense of aldehydes and esters, right, to give flavor, as well as tannin to provide structure. So we're never actually looking at pure. And so I think depending on your mix of aldehydes, esters, and water, right, and the minerals in that water, your most viscous is going to be somewhere between 90 and 95, depending on where you are and what you're making and what your base grains are. And so the idea that all of us would end up on that range being a really good spot for a lot of our products doesn't surprise me at all. And that's kind of why we only look in that 89 to 95 range. But we do look at every, we go by the point and then we'll whittle out the ones that we like, and then we'll go by the 10th of a point, half a point above and half point below. And this is all in a lab. So we're not like, you know, proofing down a barrel to like 89 and then trying to proof it back up, because you can't do that, you know. And so we do a lot of lab samples. But we look at ethanol as a polar solvent, which unlocks a lot of the mystery behind it for us.
Nice. Jim Baraboo, I know you had a question. What did you want to ask?
Well, for the guys, because I know, you know, we've got some blenders and we got some distillers. So for the distillers, what barrel entry proof are you guys looking at, or what are you typically using? Is it changing, you know, per mash bill?
We
Barrel
go in
entry proof.
always at 117.
117. Okay. All right. Murphy,
Cedar
how about
Ridge,
you, man?
Yeah, Cedar Ridge, we exclusively go in at 120. We haven't really experimented much outside of that. Going in, barrel entry proof is always 120 here.
120. Okay. Nick?
You know,
It's just
I'm
a
not
number.
very consistent. We're not very consistent. We shoot a lot of our ryes around 120.
Okay.
We like to harvest things. We were more in tune with our proof on harvesting. And so one of the things that we like to do is over time, we like to come down from 120 to about 110, 112 over the course of a couple of years. Lately, that's been happening naturally, but in the past, that has taken a 750 or 2 every other year. But we kind of want to get a broad spectrum extraction of tannin. And so what's really important to us is to change in the barrel.
Right.
And then we like the proof in the barrel as well. But for bourbons, 122 to 118 tends to be where a lot of them end up. Mostly 120. We're pretty tight on that 120. For ryes, we have a little more leeway, but they all end up being around 120.
All right. Mike, are you guys doing any cooking in someone else's kitchen? I know you guys source, but
We
are you okay? So tell us a little bit about same question for you then. So
yeah. So you know, the Jim Rutledge rule of thumb is that the lower the entry proof, the more flavor you're going to extract.
Mm-hmm.
You know, his preference is that we come in around 110, but we've fluctuated between 110 and 120. You know, there is a question of yield. I think we prefer, you know, given a choice, we're going to prefer the lower yield to the higher flavor. You know, that's just kind of generally our North Star in terms of entry proof.
Mm-hmm. What else? Renee, I want to ask you about the art. So tell us a little bit about some of the art that you do, because I think that's a very interesting component. It has nothing to do with the whiskey here, but I think it'll have some interest to some folks.
So I'm a sculptor. I'm that redheaded stepchild. People always think of, you know, artists as flat artists, but I'm a sculptor. And I've been doing it for, I don't know, close to 40 years. I've got monuments from coast to coast. I love doing big work. I'm very realistic. So I've got monuments in front of Veterans Hospital. I've done different national ones. I had steel from the North Towers, and I have 3 10-foot figures that have a fireman, a policeman, an emergency responder with the steel from the towers. So it's you know, and that's another hat that I wear because I'm the president of the Society of Animal Artists. So I deal with all sorts of stuff, and I'm dealing with a museum, but it's a wonderful side of life, and I couldn't think of anything else. It's hard work. I actually, you know, create everything with my hands. I build it from scratch with foam and then throw clay on it, and they're all cast in bronze. So yeah, been doing it close to 40 years, and yeah, it's a great job.
Very cool.
There are a couple sculptures up at Driftless. There's only a few, but not many of them, but there's a couple.
Okay. I'll have to check those out when we make it up that way.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got time for just a couple more questions. We like to keep these on point. So we've got just about 5 minutes left. So does anybody else have a question?
I was trying to get Renee to talk about the height of their still when they built their distillery.
Oh,
how they had to shorten their still.
So again, back to the fellow that was our partner. You know, basically we were silent partners. We weren't going to do anything, and he heard we had it built by Vendome. We built the distillery, and he heard 16 feet, but it was a 60-foot still. And so our contractor calls us, our ceiling is 26 feet. And so the
Right.
contractor calls us and says, dude, we got a problem. So we call Vendome, and Vendome actually takes it and they cut it. And so that's why it's a 44 foot, and the beer wells are sideways. And we did this whole, actually, I think Vendome has changed the way they designed it because of this. So then we had to put an addition on the distillery. We call it our church, because as you come down the road, there's a couple churches, and we have this, it looks like a steeple, and it's outside, and it's beautiful. It's all lit up. So at night, it looks like this big old church steeple, but it's our still. And we had to, so that's why we call it BAM, just bring another million. There it is.
Yeah, there you go. There
Okay.
you go. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So that's what we had to build on to the distillery
Just to make that happen. There's another million right there. So there you go.
bring another million.
Yep. All right. Time for one more. Again, we like to be respectful of our guests. We don't like to just, I've
Thank
seen these
you.
events where they just keep going and going and going. So we don't want to do that. Though I will hang out, talk whiskey. Our guests can stick around if they want to, but that's, at that point, that's on them. So last question. Anybody got a question to finish this thing out?
Hey, can I ask Murphy and Nick a question?
All right. You get the last question. How about that? This is the first.
I just want to know, because Murphy, you said that you put up like 200 barrels a month. So are you putting up like 2,400 a year?
Yeah, as a matter of fact. Well, this year we'll do 2,330, but we're running a little ahead of pace right now. So yeah, we'll probably hit closer to 2,400. Yep.
So how much do you have laid up?
We have about a little over 6,000 right now that are sitting down, but you got to keep in mind, we doubled our production capacity last year, and we doubled it the year before that as well. So the majority of what we're doing is happening right now, live time. Like I said earlier, I mean, we have evolved very quickly from very small. So yeah, this is actually, at the end of next month, we will have produced almost as much as we did all of last year. So yeah, we're sizable expansion, but 200
That's
a month is what we're doing.
How about you, Nick?
So we're looking at, I think this year we'll do somewhere around 1,500 total, sourced and our own. We're looking to do 800 barrels of our own this year. We're offline right now. We just got the Vendome equipment in, and that's going to be, we're adding, so we didn't, like when we had the equipment, we didn't take anything out. And so we added 10 times capacity of the facility. We weren't really cranking a lot on that head frame, and no one can crank a lot on the head frame. And so we have just over 5,500 in inventory right now. That'll be closer to 75 at the end of this year. Probably 7,000 at the end of this year. A lot of that is aged MGP inventory. We do have a lot of old stuff, ranging from most of our inventory is probably between 5 to 12 years or 5 to 10 years old from MGP. And then we also have a couple clips at 15 and a couple clips at 20.
Wow.
Yeah, we got some really
some valuable stuff. That's the stuff people want to get their hands on. So
we're going to release some of that this year. So we're really excited for that.
Cool.
My hopes are about 2,000 to 2,500 barrels of our own, and then about 1,000 barrels is sourced a year, kind of moving forward. That's what we want to do. And then once we get there, we want to open up our books for White Dog. So, I think we're going to work with another one of our wonderful friends from Wisconsin, who sources a lot of whiskey. And I think we're going to start with them in November, and then try to hit the hammer and start feeding some of the crisis that has gone on since MGP. What?
You're talking Paul?
What? No, I'm not going to, no, Paul doesn't source whiskey. Paul makes whiskey, right? But
That's
someone
what I meant.
sources.
Oh, you're sourcing from someone.
Oh no, I source from MGP. That's it.
You want to source with someone. You're doing a collaboration.
We're going to open up our books in November to source to other people. And so,
All right.
And
That's
so
cool.
if anyone here is looking for White Dog, I'll hook you up by the tote tanker or rail car, homie. Let's do this shit.
There you go.
Bro.
There you go. All right. Well, let's hear it for all of our representatives. Let's hear it for Nick, Mike, Sammy, Renee, and Murphy. Thanks, guys. Great job. What a great event. Awesome whiskeys, great stories, excellent guests. Couldn't have been any better. A+. I'm grading myself here. Something I was never good at, but I'm confident in that grade. I did a good job there. So it's just a great night. A great night for sure. So don't forget, gang, we'll be back here next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. We'll have 5 distillers. We'll see if I can actually get 5 in the same time frame. That's going to be tough. That's going to be, I'm glad we had Nick on this week. This worked out well. This worked out well. We'll say goodbye again to our audience. I'm going to stick around. Anybody wants to stick around, we'll talk whiskey. We'll talk bourbon. We'll talk about the ABV barrel shop that's coming soon to St. Louis, Missouri, owned by Jim Fosna and I. We'll do that right now. See you guys. Bye.